Hey, this is Joe from Presonus, and this is Wayne, the Studio Kitty. Today we're going to dive into folder tracks in Studio One. I'll admit folder tracks aren't the most exciting topic, but before you skip this video, if you haven't used folder tracks in your productions and especially in your mixes, you might be missing out. Let me show you why. First of all, how do we create folder tracks? We click on this plus sign or we press T on the keyboard and we select folder from this list of different track types. Okay, we're going to create one folder called folder because that's how you pronounce it if you're from Kentucky. All right, so by itself, this isn't doing anything, but now we could open up a folder on our computer with all these audio files, and let's just drag these into the session real quick, okay? Now we've got all these audio tracks in our session. Now let's say we want to have two folders, so I Command D to duplicate that folder track. Folder one will be, let's say we want to make that our bass guitars, because a lot of times there's more than one. There's a bass amp signal and a bass DI signal. I can grab both of these and drag them into that folder. So you'll know it's in the folder A because it's beneath the folder track. And if we click on the folder, we can open and close the folder. The files are still there. They're just being hidden and you can kind of see what's in there by the way this image changes here next to the folder track. You can also tell here on the left-hand side, anything inside the folder is slightly indented, right? This is not inside this folder, but these two are inside the folder. And folders do a couple of things. But before I show you that, let me show you the second way I like to create folder tracks. And it's really simple and probably more useful if you are importing tracks into your session. Let's say we want to make a folder for all the drums. We could select all the drums and drag them into an existing folder, which I just showed you. Or we can do this. We can select all the drums, put them all together. Hang on one second, let me do that. Okay, so these are my drum tracks. Let's say I just recorded drums and I think I'd love to have a folder for these. I just select them all, right? Hit the first one, hold down Shift, hit the last one, right click on the track and choose Pack Folder. You can set that to a keyboard shortcut if you want. This packs them into a folder named Track 22. That is super handy, but let's change the name to Drums. So now if we open and close this folder, you can see the drums are now inside. Now, what are the benefits of a folder? Why have a folder other than showing and hiding things, which is sometimes useful? Couple of things for me. First of all, it allows me to quickly color code things. So let's say we want these drums to be blue. If I change the color of the folder, it also changes the color of all the tracks. Now, if this doesn't work for you when you first try it, nothing's broken. Open up Preferences, click on Advanced, go to Editing, and make sure the box next to Apply Folder Track Color to Content is selected, and then this will work. The next thing we can do with this drums folder is now create a drums bus directly from the folder. So instead of using the create bus for selected channels action, we can skip that entirely and I can click on this little drop down on the drums bus. You can see if you just hover over it, it tells you what it's going to do. This allows me to do one of two things. I can select a bus that's already created in the session, or I can just add a bus channel. Now check out what happens when I do this. Not much, right? But here's what happened. You see this fader now? We now have a fader on our folder track, which gives us a clue that there must be a fader now in our mixer or our console as well. See this right here? This is now our drum bus, but it's also represents our folder track. So if I click and open and close the folder here in the mixer, you can see all the folders are being sucked up into the folder. All the tracks are going into the folder. It's copying and mimicking what's happening on the bus as well, or in the arranger as well. Now, if you are opening and closing your folders and it's not doing the same thing in both your mixer and your arranger, never fear, there's a setting for that. Come over to the wrench inside the console and make sure you have link expansion and visibility of folder tracks selected, and now these will move together. Now maybe you have a situation where you don't ever want them to collapse inside of the mixer, then you would deselect that setting. So by having a folder track, we're able to color code everything in the folder in one fell swoop. We're also able to route everything to a bus. Well, what happens if we created this beautiful drums folder, but we forgot one of the drum tracks right here? This stairwell track is actually my room mic track. I put it up in the stairwell at that studio I was in. I forgot to put it in there. Well, let's take a look at it real quick. If we hit F4 to see the details for this channel, it is going out the main outputs. It is colored sort of aqua, and we need it to be in this folder and routed to the drum bus and colored blue. Well, guess what? If I just drag this into the folder, you can see, first of all, if I don't let go of the mouse, it says move track into folder drums. Bam. Now check it out. It is now colored blue, and guess what? It is now routed to the drums bus. I can't tell you the last time that I went in and actually clicked the output of one of my channels to send it to a bus, because all I ever do is have folders that are represented by buses, and then I put tracks into those folders and they're automatically routed to those buses. Really, really handy. This is actually hang on, let me show you. This is my mixing template. What do you see on the screen? All folders. So I've set up 7 or 8 folders with the typical buses that I would like to have. And if we open up the mixer, we can see each of those folders corresponds to a bus. So they're sitting there ready for me to drop tracks into them. It makes mix setup a breeze. Hopefully I've shown you how folder tracks can be really handy for mixing, but they're also great for recording and editing as well. Let me show you. Here are the drums we have packed into a drum folder. They're all beautiful and blue. Now, you'll notice, aside from the regular mute, solo, record, and monitor buttons, in addition to the fader for this drum bus/folder, we also have this little button here. If you hover over it, it says Group Tracks. Now, when I used Pro Tools for years, I was heavily into using groups to allow me to do things like edit the drums as one group. So if I edit the kick drum, it edits all the tracks, which is what you want to do. Also useful for if I'm recording drums and I want to switch playlists. Drummer did one take, he wants to do another take. I can select one drum, add it to a group, make sure it's in the group with all the other drums, and then I can add a new playlist or a new layer, and it'll happen to all of them. Now, Studio One allows us to do that, but we don't have to go through the trouble of selecting all the tracks, creating a group, naming the group, and all that. You can do that, and you can work that way, but folder tracks actually make it one step easier. I literally just need to come up here to the folder track, click on that button, and now all these tracks are grouped. How do you know? Let's click here, and let's do an edit across some of the drums. They're all together. I click and drag one set of drums, it moves. I click and drag this, it moves. They're all grouped together. I can't not have them grouped. In fact, if I move the fader, all the faders move together. They're grouped together, which is exactly what you want for the examples that I mentioned. If he's done with take 1 and he wants to do another take, I can say no problem. I come over here to layers and I hit add new layer, and guess what? We'll call this take 2. All the drums change to layer 2, to take 2. And if I don't want the group anymore, because typically I'm grouping for a specific task, once the task is done, I just have to come up here and click that button, and now I can treat things individually if I want to. All right, that wraps up our tour of folder tracks. Do you use folders? How do you use them? Or have you never considered them up until now? Leave a comment and let us know, and be sure to like and subscribe, because we've got a lot of great content coming at you, and we don't want you to miss. Thanks for watching. See ya.